Hi everyone, welcome to another video. For this Easter, I'm actually going to be releasing one video every day. Because of Corona, I know a lot of people can't or will not go out, which you definitely shouldn't unless you have to. And because of that, I wanted to do the little thing that I can do, which is maybe create some entertainment for everyone. So I hope you will enjoy the video that I have prepared for you. And if you did, please give this video a like and subscribe below, and we'll jump right into the video. Hi everyone, and welcome to a new video. The scenery is a little bit different today because I wanted to do a video that is a little bit different. I have been wanting for a while to share my favorite fairy tale from when I was young with you, and the fairy tale is called White-Bear King Valemon, and it is like an old Norwegian fairy tale. So I have never read it in English before, but I still wanted to share it with everyone. And if you have a fairy tale from when you were younger, leave it down below and let me know, because I have this childhood thing about reading fairy tales. I remember my grandparents used to have this book of old Norwegian fairy tales, and this one was in there and it was my absolute favorite. So I hope you will enjoy it too. I have my tablet here that I can read it from. So this is, like I said, White-Bear King Valemon, or Kvitebjørn Kong Valemon, as it is called in Norwegian. And if you want to actually read it as well, I will leave a link down below to where you can find it. And the fairy tale goes like this. There was once, as well could be, a king. He had 2 daughters who were mean and ugly, but the third was as fair as sweet as the brightest day, and the king and all were fond of her. She once dreamed about a golden wreath, which was so lovely that she couldn't live unless she got it. But as she couldn't get it, she began to pine and could not speak for sorrow. And when the king found out it was the wreath she was grieving for, he had one made almost like the one the princess had dreamed of, and sent it out to goldsmiths in every land and asked them to make one like it. They worked both day and night, but some of the wreaths she threw away and others she wouldn't even look at. Then one day when she was in the forest, she caught sight of a white bear which had the wreath she had dreamed of between its paws and was playing with it, and she wanted to buy it. No, it was not to be had for money, but only in return for herself. Well, life wasn't worth living without it, she said. It didn't matter where she went or who she got, if only she got the wreath. And so they agreed that he was to fetch her in 3 days' time, and that would be a Thursday. When she came home with the wreath, everyone was glad because she was happy again. And the king felt sure that it would be a simple matter to keep a white bear at bay. On the 3rd day, the whole army was posted around the castle with him. But when the white bear came, there was no one who would hold it against him, for no weapon could make any effect on him. He knocked them down right and left until they were lying in heaps. This, thought the king, was proving downright disastrous, so he sent out his oldest daughter, and the white bear took her on his back and rushed off with her. When they had traveled far and farther than far, the white bear asked, "Have you ever sat softer? Have you ever seen clearer?" "Yes, on my mother's lap I sat softer. In my father's court I saw clearer," she said. "Well, you're not the right one then," said the white bear, and chased her home again. The next Thursday he came again, and did just as he had done before. The army was out with orders to deal with the white bear, but neither iron nor steel bit on him, so he mowed them down like grass until the king asked him to stop. And then he sent out his next eldest daughter, and the white bear took her up on his back and rushed off with her. When they had traveled far and farther than far, the white bear asked, "Have you ever sat softer? Have you ever seen clearer?" "Yes, on my mother's lap I sat softer. In my father's court I saw clearer," she said. "Well, you're not the right one then," said the white bear, and chased her home again. On the 3rd Thursday he came again. This time he fought even harder than before, until the king thought he couldn't let him knock down the whole army, and so he gave him his 3rd daughter. Then he took her on his back and traveled far and farther than far, and when they had reached the forest he asked her, as he had asked the others, if she had ever sat softer and seen clearer. "No, never," she said. Well, you're the right one then, he said. So they came to the castle, which was so fine that the castle her father lived in was like the meanest cottage in comparison. There she was to stay and live well, and she was to have nothing else to do but see to it that the fire never went out. The bear was away during the day, but at night he was with her, and then he was a man. For 3 years all went as well as could be, but each year she had a child, which he took and rushed away with as soon as it had come into the world. So she became more and more downcast, and asked if she couldn't be allowed to go home and see her parents. Yes, there was no objection to that, but first she must promise that she would listen to what her father said, but not to what her mother wanted her to do. So she went home, and when they were alone with her, and she had told them how she was getting on, how her mother wanted to give her a candle to take with her, so she could see what the bear was like when he returned into a man at night. But her father said no, she shouldn't do that, it will only do more harm than good. But no matter how it was or was not, she took the candlestick with her when she left. The first thing she did when she had fallen asleep was to light it and shine it on him. He was so handsome that she thought she could never gaze her fill at him. As she shone the light, a drop of hot tallow dripped onto his forehead, and so he awoke. "What have you done? Now you have wrought misfortune for us both. There was no more than a month left. If you had only held out, I would have been freed, for a troll hag bewitched me, now that I am a white bear during the day. But now it's over with us. Now I have to go there and take her." She cried and carried on, but he had to go, and go he would. So she asked if she could go with him. That was out of the question, he said, but when he rushed off in his bearskin, she seized hold of the fur all the same. Flung she up on his back and held up fast. Then they were off over the mountain and hill, through grove and thicket, until her clothes were torn off, and she was so dead tired that she let go her hold and knew no more. When she awoke, she was in a great forest, and so she set out on her way again. But she didn't know where her path led. All the same, she came to a cottage where there were 2 women folk, an old crone and a pretty little girl. The king's daughter asked if they had seen anything of White-Bear King Valemon. "Yes, he rushed by here early today, but he was going so fast that you won't catch up with him again," they said. The little girl scampered about and clipped and played with a pair of golden scissors, which were such that pieces of silk and strips of velvet flew about her if she but clipped in the air. Wherever the scissors were, clothing were never lacking. "But this poor woman who has to journey so far and on such rough roads, she'll have to toil hard," said the little girl. "She has more need of these scissors than I, to cut clothes for herself," she said. And then she asked if she could give her the scissors. Yes, that she could. So the king's daughter set off through the woods, which never came to an end, all the day and night. And the next morning she came to another cottage. Here there were also 2 womenfolk, an old crone and a little girl. "Good day," said the king's daughter. "Have you seen anything of White-Bear King Valemon?" she asked. "Were you to have had him, maybe?" said the old woman. "That it was." "Why, yes, he rushed by here yesterday, but he went so fast that you won't catch up with him," she said. The little girl was playing around on the floor with a flask, which was such that it poured out whatever they wanted, and wherever the flask was, drink was never lacking. "But this poor woman who has to journey so far and on such rough roads shall be thirsty and suffer many such hardships," said the little girl, and then she asked if she could give her the flask. Why, yes, that she could. So the king's daughter got the flask, said her thanks, and set out again, walking through the same forest all day and all night. On the 3rd morning she came to a cottage, and there was an old woman and a little girl. "Good day," said the king's daughter. "Have you seen anything of White-Bear King Valemon?" she asked. "Were you to have had him, maybe?" said the old woman. That it was. "Why, yes, he rushed by here yesterday, but he went so fast that you will not catch up with him," she said. The little girl was playing on the floor with a cloth that was such that whenever they said to it, "Cloth, spread thyself, and deck thyself with every good dish," it did so, and wherever the cloth was, good food was never lacking. "But this poor old woman who has to journey so far and on such rough roads," said the little girl, "she may well both starve and suffer many other hardships, so she'll have more need of this cloth than I," she said. and then she asked if she could give her the cloth. That she could. So the king's daughter took her cloth and said her thanks and set off. Far, farther than far, through the forest all the day and night she went. In the morning she came to a mountain spur, which was as steep as a wall and so high and so wide that no end could she see. There was a cottage there too, and when she came in, the first thing she said was, "Good day, have you seen whether White-Bear King Valemon has traveled this way?" "Were you to have had him, maybe?" said the old woman. That it was. "Yes, he rushed by here yesterday, but he went so far that you won't catch up with him," she said. The cottage was full of little children, and they all clung to their mother's apron strings and cried for food. The old woman put a kettle full of pebbles on the fire. The king's daughter asked what was the good of that. They were so poor, said the old woman, that they could afford neither food nor clothes, and it was so hard to hear the children crying for a bit to eat. But when she put the kettle on the fire and said, "Now the apples will soon be done," it seemed to deaden their hunger, and they were patient for a while. It wasn't long before the king's daughter got out the cloth and the flask, as you can imagine, and when the children were fed and happy, she clipped out clothing for them with the golden scissors. "Well," said the old woman of the house, "since you've been so heartily kind to me and my children, it would be a shame not to do what we can to help you up the mountain. My husband is really a master smith. Now you just rest until he comes back, and I'll get him to forge claws for your hands and feet, and then you can try to crawl up." When the smith came, he started on the claws right away, and the next morning they were ready. She had no time to wait, but said her thanks, fastened the claws to her hands, and crept and crawled up the mountainside the whole day and night, and just when she was so tired that she didn't think she could lift her hand again, but felt she would sink to the ground, she got to the top. There was a plain with fields and meadows so big and wide that she had never imagined anything so broad and so smooth, and close by there was a castle filled with workers of every kind who toiled like ants in an anthill. "What is going on here?" asked the king's daughter. Well, this was where she lived, the troll hag who had bewitched White-Bear King Valemon, and in 3 days she was to wed him. The king's daughter asked if she could talk to her. No, not likely. That was out and out impossible. So she sat down outside the window and started clipping with the golden scissors, and velvet and silken clothing flew about like a snow flurry. When the troll hag caught sight of that, she wanted to buy the scissors. "For no matter how the tailors toil, it's no use," she said. "There are too many to be clothed." The scissors weren't for sale, said the king's daughter, but the troll hag could have them if she would let her sleep with her sweetheart tonight. She could certainly do that, said the troll hag, but she would lull him into sleep herself and wake him up herself. When he had gone to bed, she gave him a sleeping potion, so he was in no condition to wake up, for all the king's daughters shouted and cried. The next day the king's daughter went outside the windows again, and sat down and started pouring from the flask. It flowed like a brook, both beer and wine, and it never ran dry. When the troll hag laid eyes on that, she wanted to buy it. "For no matter how much they toil at the brewing and distilling, it's no use, there are too many to drink," she said. "It wasn't for sale for money," said the king's daughter, "but if she could let her sleep with her sweetheart tonight, she would give it to her." "Yes, that she could certainly do," said the troll hag, "but she would lull him to sleep herself and wake him up herself." When he had gone to bed, she gave him a sleeping potion again, so the king's daughter had no better luck that night either. He couldn't be awakened, for all she cried and shouted. But that night one of the artisans were working in the room next door. He heard her cry in there, and he guessed at what had really happened. And the next day he told the prince that she must have come, the king's daughter who was to have freed him. The next day was just like the others, with the cloth as with the scissors and the flask. When it was dinner time, the king's daughter went outside the castle, pulled out the cloth, and said, "Cloth, spread thyself, and deck thyself with every good dish." Then there was enough food for 100 men, but the king's daughter sat there alone. When the troll hag caught sight of the cloth, she wanted to buy it. "For no matter how much they cook and bake, it's no use. There are too many mouths to feed," she said. "It wasn't for sale for money," said the king's daughter, "but if she would let her sleep with her sweetheart tonight, she could have it." "She could certainly do that," said the troll hag, "but she would lull him into sleep herself and wake him up herself." When he had gone to bed, she came with a sleeping potion, but this time he was on his guard and fooled her. The troll hag didn't trust him any more than just so far she didn't, for she took a darning needle and stuck it right through his arm to see if he were sleeping soundly enough. But no matter how much it hurt, he didn't move, and then the king's daughter was allowed to come into him. Now this was all very well, but they must get rid of the troll hag before he would be free. So he got the carpenters to make a trap door on the bridge with a bridal procession was to cross, for it was the custom there that the bride would ride first in the procession. When the troll hag started across the bridge with all her troll hag bridesmaids, the planks under them dropped down and they all fell through. Then King Valemon and the king's daughter and all the wedding guests rushed back to the castle and took as much of the troll hag's gold and money as they could carry, and then rushed off to his country to hold the real wedding. But on the way, King Valemon stopped in and fetched the 3 little girls, and now she found out why he had taken the children from her. It was so that they could help her find him, so they caroused at the wedding both lustily and long. The end. I don't know why I like the fairy tale so much, but like I said at the beginning, it is one of my favorites, so I hope you enjoyed it too. And if you did like this video, if you want to see more videos of me reading old Norwegian fairy tales, let me know down below. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!